Hi everybody, my name's Natasha Butler and I'll be taking you through this week's lecture in BX3181 Social Surveys and Questionnaire Design. And in this topic, we're discussing the role of research in marketing and the research process. So the learning objectives that we have for this particular topic is to understand the importance of marketing research as a management decision-making tool, to define marketing research, to understand when marketing research is needed and when it shouldn't be conducted, list the stages in the marketing research process, and to classify marketing research as exploratory research, descriptive research, or causal research. So let's start off now with the definition of what marketing research is. Marketing research is the systemic design, collection, interpretation, and reporting of information to help marketers solve specific marketing problems or to take advantage of marketing opportunities. It can be used for any aspect of the marketing mix. It's a process that we use to gather market insights that aren't currently available to decision makers. The research information should be scientific, and that is, we shouldn't be using intuition or just be haphazardly gathered. We shouldn't be just making guesses or assumptions. The research information should have an objective, so that is partial and free from judgment. So it's very clear on what it is that we want the research to achieve. And also, finally, the research information should be impersonal. That means it should be detached and unbiased, because it's not what we think, it's about the outcomes of our research. Market researchers should not attempt to support preconceived ideas or fulfill their own agenda by undertaking the research. But by providing appropriate information, research is a tool that can be used to guide managerial decision-making. So, why should a company undertake market research? So we might undertake market research so that we can get a better understanding on what is happening out in the marketplace, such as what our competitors are doing, what products they offer, and what offers they've got actually out there in the marketplace to help their products sell. We might undertake market research to determine the changing needs of our customers. So what do our customers want? What are their desires? So this research might provide new insights that can increase our company's ability to respond to those customer needs. We might conduct marketing research to uncover what opportunities there are. Is there new customers that we're not aware of that might be interested in our product? Is there product development that we can invest in? Is there new distribution channels that we might want to explore? Partnerships, promotional opportunities. So exactly what opportunities are there for us out there in the marketplace? We might undertake research to determine and understand the changing attitudes and purchase patterns of customers. Are people still buying the same way they used to? Do they still feel the same way about our products and the way that our products are delivered as they used to? But ultimately, research as a whole should improve our company's ability to make profitable decisions and improve the marketer's ability to make informed decisions. So when it comes to marketing research, we are limited and bound by our current state of knowledge, by what we already know. So we undertake research, we are able to then gain knowledge on something that we didn't know before. And that then helps us expand our knowledge base so that we can make business decisions. The information obtained by undertaking market research is judged as being worthwhile if it results in marketing activities that better satisfy the firm's target customers, leads to increased sales and profits, or helps the firm to achieve some other goal. Move on. So what exactly do we do when we're undertaking market research? So as we spoke about, the definition of market research is that market research is the systemic and objective process of generating information for aid in making marketing decisions. So we need to look at the sort of information that we need. So specifically specifying the information required to address the market issues. We look at how we gather that information. So we design a method for collecting information. We then need to look at how we analyze that information and manage and implement the data collection process. And then we analyze the results. And then finally, we communicate our findings and the implications to other people inside our organizations. And we make our recommendations as well, so that then forward decisions can be made. Now, marketing research can be on a continuum from basic research to applied research. Now, basic research attempts to expand the limits of knowledge, and it's not directly involved in solving any pragmatic problems. Basically, it provides theory. This type of research examines data to find the unknown and maybe fulfill a sense of curiosity. So this usually involves the how, the what, and the why questions to explain occurrences. Basic research looks at how processes or concepts work, and information obtained from basic research often creates a foundation for other applied studies. So for an example, how does a car work? Who is the Prime Minister of Australia? Why is the sky blue? So this is research that people do all of the time. You've done it, I've done it, everybody does it. I mean, think about what was the last thing you put into a Google search? That is undertaking basic research. But really, for the purpose of this subject, we're really a bit more interested in going a bit deeper than just doing a Google search. We are going to be looking at applied research. And applied research is a type of examination looking to find practical solutions for existing problems. These can include challenges in the workplace, education and society, so a whole range of different things. So this research type uses imperial methodologies such as experiments to collect further data in an area of study. Findings are applicable and usually implemented upon completion of the study. Applied research focuses on answering one specific question for the client or the sponsor, just one. We are very detailed and we're very specific. So we're just answering one specific question. It's a type of research method for applying natural sciences to real life to improve the human condition. So market research falls into three different categories. It's either tertiary, primary, or secondary. So tertiary research is when we examine company records, such as financial records, sales records, or CRM. So it's data that we have already inside our organization. And quite possibly when you come to work in an organization, you'll be doing quite a lot of data analysis in this space because it helps us identify how well some of our sales promotions have gone. Then we have primary research, and primary research is tailor-made. So this is research that is not already known, and it's specific to our needs and our purposes. Now, primary research is either quantitative or qualitative in nature. So quantitative data is descriptive and explains what is occurring and how, usually in rating scales and responses, yes or no questions, etc. And we usually obtain this through survey methods, etc. Or else qualitative data is where we're looking at values, attitudes, or views on a particular topic. It provides you with the why of what's occurring, and it allows for some deeper understanding of the data. So let's have a look at this a little bit further. So as we've spoken about, we need to consider whether we're undertaking quantitative or qualitative research. So quantitative research is descriptive. So it describes what's going on, and we use that in the experimental researches. It yields us with quantitative data, that is numerical information. So common techniques where we're using our quantitative data is in structured questionnaires and surveys. So for example, please tick between numbers 1 to 5 how you feel about this. Qualitative data, on the other hand, is a little bit more descriptive in nature, or a lot more descriptive in nature. We use it quite more often in exploratory research and when we're wanting to go a little bit deeper into our research. So it yields qualitative data. That means it's non-numerical. So this type of data might be, so it's very common for focus groups or observation and interviews. So that might be, hey, tell me your opinion on how this class is going. Give me some feedback. That is qualitative data. Where quantitative data, on a scale of 1 to 5, how would you rate this class? So you see the difference there. Quantitative data can be very useful because it's very easy to obtain and it's very easy to analyze. Qualitative data, on the other hand, gives us a little bit more in-depth, because then just by ticking a box, yeah, I go, yes, satisfied, not satisfied. But by you then telling me giving us that qualitative data means that then we're able to get some richer and deeper understanding about why you feel the way that you feel, or why respondents feel the way that they feel. So as we spoke about, primary research, it's tailor-made and specific to our needs and purposes. And we've spoken about it's either quantitative or qualitative in nature. And we collect the data through primary data sources. So that means that through the actual consumers and customers, and they provide us with direct answers to our questions. And we do this through surveys, face-to-face interviews, perhaps some focus groups, some customer feedback. So our data is observed, recorded, or collected directly from the respondents. It is, it's collected to address a specific problem that can't be answered by secondary data alone. And it's gathered by observing phenomena or surveying people of interest. Finally, we have secondary data or secondary research. And this is research that's already been created before. It's been created for some other purpose, but we are able to access that information or that research for our own purposes. So some secondary data sources include things such as reports and statistics held by the ABS, or the Australian Bureau of Statistics. And they tell us some really interesting things about demographics and populations. We've got industry publications that we might be interested in looking at. Social media websites, for example, they gave us some great consumer feedback on what people's thoughts and opinions are. We have marketing and consumer lists too that we can draw information from. Newspapers and the media as well is able to give us some secondary data or some secondary information. And then you've got other data sources such as IBISWorld or Statista, who collect a whole lot of market data for different businesses to access. So, for example, we can find out the scope of the size of the outdoor equipment market here in Australia by accessing the databases of those from IBISWorld or Statista. So each type of research, whether it be tertiary, primary or secondary research, might be appropriate. It might be the appropriate tool to use depending on the research question. However, we usually use a combination of 2 or 3 of them to provide greater insight for our business and to help us with our decision making. So the prime managerial value of marketing research is that it reduces uncertainty by providing information that facilitates decision-making about marketing strategies and the tactics used to achieve an organization's strategic goals. So now we're going to have a look at how we use that marketing research to develop our marketing strategy. So there's 4 stages in developing and implementing the marketing strategy, and they are identifying and evaluating opportunities. So market research can help managers recognize problems and identify those opportunities. And this is through things such as estimates of market potential. Maybe some opportunities can be evaluated using different performance criteria. Such research like this can help us predict changes in our environmental conditions or even demand. So we can use our research to develop, we can implement marketing research to identify and evaluate opportunities. We might use it in analyzing or selecting our target markets. So we use marketing research to help us identify those market segments with different characteristics from the overall market. For example, the Australian telecommunications providers might ask, who are Telstra's most likely customers and why? They might also ask, who are the customers more likely to join Optus and why might that be? So we can also use research to develop our marketing strategy through planning and implementing the marketing mix. And so we use this information to evaluate alternate courses of action because it can aid us in choosing a mix that will satisfy our customers' needs and meet the objectives of the company. So research should be conducted regarding each element of our marketing mix. So for example, we do product research where we evaluate our existing product lines and maybe look at potential new product lines that we're going to implement. We might do some pricing research where we can learn the ideal price level for our product. We might do distribution research where we're going to identify the most efficient and practical distribution network. Or we may do promotion research where we investigate the efficiency of different promotional tools. Now, all four of these elements must be integrated for us to create the best marketing mix. And we would never, ever go out to market without having done some research first to understand whether or not our consumers actually like what it is that we're doing. And finally, we use research in developing marketing strategy by analysing market performance. So marketing research helps inform managers if planned activities were properly executed and whether they accomplished their desired goals. So this can be done through performance monitored research, which is a type of research that provides regular feedback for controlling and evaluating market activities. So that might be the sales team might give us feedback on how they went with implementing a specific launch. We have market share analysis and sales analysis, and they are the most common forms of performance monitoring research. So if such research indicates things are not quite going as planned, we might do some further research to explain why something went wrong. So let's now have a look at the stages in the research process. So when we are considering or setting up to undertake marketing research, there are 6 steps that we follow because we need to we want to ensure that we gather accurate information. And so we go through this process that really has quite logical steps. It's a systematic inquiry that continues throughout all stages of the research. But the research can be broken into 6 stages, all of which are functionally interrelated and overlap chronologically. So these steps should be viewed as an overall approach to conducting research rather than a rigid set of rules to be followed in each project. There is no best way to research, and the method chosen will depend on your resources. So that is how much time you have available to invest in the research, how much money you have to invest in the research, because undertaking research, particularly primary research, can take quite a significant amount of time and a lot of money. And how much, and human resources, how much manpower you have available to you to undertake this research. So depending on those resources available will depend on the type of research that you do. But our 6 steps, which we're going to go into in more detail, is where we define the problem. We then plan the research design, we plan the sample on who it is that we're going to research, collect our data, analyse the data, and then formulate conclusions and write the final report, which is one of the most important elements. So let's start with step 1. The research process begins with problem discovery and defining the problem. So at the problem definition stage, the research begins with the problem discovery. Often, only symptoms of the problem might be apparent, such as sales are declining, and management aren't really sure of the exact nature of the problem. They don't know why those sales are declining. So by identifying and defining the problem gives us that sense of direction on where we're going to investigate. So that's our starting point. Sales are declining. What do we need to do? Where do we need to research? So marketing research must have clear objectives and definite designs. And problem definition is probably the most important, yet the most neglected area of market research. So it is really, really important to be very clear about exactly what it is that you are researching or the problem that you're wanting to solve by undertaking this research. An orderly definition of the research problem lends a sense of direction to the investigation. It tells us where we want to go, what we want to find out. And so it's really important here to be specific. So every marketing problem can be classified on a continuum ranging from complete uncertainty to absolute ambiguity. Uncertainty influences the type of research that's selected. So the major aspects of defining a problem in market research are the certainty. And the certainty looks at means all the information the decision maker needs is available. However, this isn't very often the case. When we're considering uncertainty, that means the manager grasps the general nature of the desired objectives, but the information about the alternatives is incomplete. Or else we have ambiguity, and this means the nature of the problem to be solved is completely unclear. We have no idea what's going on. So the table 1.1 that I've put here in the slide is on page 21 of the textbook, and this shows the basic design techniques for descriptive and causal research, surveys and experiments, secondary data and observation. The type of research method is selected according to the nature of the problem and how well it how well defined it is. So when we are looking at our statement of research objectives, we need to be very clear at identifying and clarifying the problem. And then we make a formal statement of the problem and the research objectives. So this statement delineates the type of information that should be collected, and it provides a framework for the scope of study. The second step to our research, is planning the research design. Now, a research design is a master plan specifying the methods and procedures for collecting and analysing the required information. The research design should consider the research objectives and determine the sources of information, the design technique, the sampling methodology, the time scheduled, and the budget for the research. So we check on all of those things: the objectives, the sources of information, the design technique, the sampling methodology, time, and budget. And there are 3 research designs to choose from: exploratory research, descriptive research, and causal research. And we're going to look at those 3 in a little bit more depth now. Exploratory research is conducted in the initial stages of the research process, and we do this to narrow the scope of the research topic. So exploratory research includes, exploratory research includes secondary data, and that's historical data like what we've spoke about. It's information that's already been provided to us, and we have it pretty easily on hand. So we can usually find that inside the company or libraries, online, etc. Now, secondary research is a really great place to start because it's usually very quick to undertake this type of research. It's pretty inexpensive as well, a lot cheaper than undertaking primary research. However, there are some limitations to secondary data, and that is that it may be outdated or it may not exactly meet the research needs. Now, the other way we go about doing our exploratory research is by doing pilot studies. And that's where we actually collect a little bit of data from our ultimate consumer or the actual subject of the research project. And this serves as a guide for us for a larger study. So the data collection methods that we use here are generally informal, and the findings probably lack precision, but they may be able to suggest possible topics for more formal investigation. So, for example, a pilot study may send a manager out to observe what customers experience when they're looking at purchasing our product. Or it may take the form of a focus group interview where we bring people into a room and we ask their opinions, and that might help us formulate our problem, identify that problem a little bit better, and how we're going to go about doing collecting further research. We then may look at doing descriptive research. Now, descriptive research is used to uncover and describe key population characteristics. So it seeks to determine the answers to who, what, when, where, and how type of questions. For example, we might be determining who purchases a specific product. We might be wanting to understand the size of the overall market that we're looking at. We might want to identify our competitors' actions. So descriptive studies are based on some previous understanding of the nature of the research problem. Now, our descriptive research methods includes surveys, and this is one of the most common ways that we generally collect primary data. So it's a technique where descriptive information is gathered from a sample of people by use of a questionnaire, and we usually administer it by mail, email, phone, in person, or online. Each administration method has its advantages and disadvantages, and all are appropriate in different situations. But descriptive research methods are, that's the one, surveys, that's what we're looking at. They're very flexible, but they can be a little difficult to get a good response rate for. Hopefully you won't find that with undertaking your assessment, that you do get a good success rate. You may consider descriptive research, the descriptive research method of secondary data again, because as we just spoke about, it's really readily available. It's really easy to access. And this is where we use that past data to project future figures for a particular event or phenomenon. Or finally, we might use descriptive research through observation. And that's where the objective of research is merely just to record what we observe. So the advantage of this is that it's non-reactive, and the data can be unobtrusively and passively collected, hopefully without the respondent's direct participation or without the respondent's direct knowledge. However, for an inexperienced researcher, it might be a little bit difficult to administer. And some of the biggest disadvantages of this method is that we can't observe intangible states of mind, such as how the person was feeling at that time. So some examples of observation is watching videos of crowds of people in a shopping centre, or maybe undertaking some mystery shopping experiences as well, which you all might have done when you undertook your introductory to marketing subject. And I must say too, is that for me as a marketer, I quite often go and do some mystery shopping and undertake some observation to help me better understand what's out there in the market and how customers interact with my products and my competitors' products as well. I always find it really interesting to watch, to people watch, and to observe what they're doing. Finally, our third type of research is causal research, and this is used to identify the cause and effect relationships among variables. Now, causal relationships can be a little bit more difficult to prove. So evidence of causality requires an appropriate order of events, some type of variation, so two phenomena that vary together, and an absence of alternative plausible explanations. So exploratory and descriptive research normally precede causal research. So causal research really just includes experiments, and experiments hold the greatest potential for establishing a cause and effect relationship because they allow the research to investigate changes in one variable while manipulating one or two other variables under controlled conditions. Causal factors can be isolated because outside factors don't come into play. One example experimentation is test marketing, so where the experiment controls conditions so that one or more variables can be manipulated in order to test a hypothesis. Many companies in the fast-moving consumer goods industry conduct experiments that simply determine consumer reactions to different types of packaging. It's quite a common one that's done to see which one sells more. So it's argued that there is no single best research design. there are many alternative methods for solving a problem, and there's no hard or fast rule for good market research. But that doesn't mean that the researcher faces chaos and confusion. Researchers can choose among many alternative methods for solving the problem. But knowing how to select the most appropriate research design comes about with experience, like everything, really. So the next step in our research process is we look at sampling. Now, sampling is any procedure that uses a small amount of items or that uses part of the population to draw a conclusion regarding the whole population. So a sample is a representative subset from a larger population. Because, of course, as a researcher, it would be impossible or near impossible for us to go out and research every single person who interacts with our product or every single person on the planet. So that's why we use a sample or a representative subset of the entire population. The results of a statistically sound sample should have the same characteristics as the overall population. But of course, errors can occur. It's not foolproof. And this can be done if the target population isn't representative of potential customers, or if the sample size is just too small, or not a probability sample, or if the unit is not randomly selected. So there is some flaws to that, but it's a generally, we can think about that as it can give us a very good idea of what the whole is thinking. So there are two basic types of sample. Probability sample, and that's in which every member of the population has a known, such as birth gender, or the probability sample in which every member of the population, sorry, I've lost my train of thought now. Probability sample is when we've got the known, and a non-zero probability is a selection and oh my gosh, sorry, I completely lost my train of thought there. We've got the non-probability sample. We've spoken about the probability sample. The non-probability sample is when the sample is selected on the basis of my personal judgment, or the personal judgment of the researchers, such as, you group over there, you'll do. So generally, though, when we're doing our research, a combination of probability and non-probability is used. And the researcher is the person who actually determines who it is that's going to be sampled, how large that sample is needed, and how many sampling units will be selected. So now that we've identified that problem, the research design planned using either a combination of exploratory, descriptive, or causal research methods, and the samples selected, now we can begin collecting our data. So depending on the design chosen, there are many different methods of data collection, which we're going to go into in a lot more detail over the coming weeks. But for example, the survey method, that requires direct participation with the respondent. Or else we could use an unobtrusive method such as observation, which doesn't. But the first phase of any data collection is to pre-test. And this is where we get just a small scale study on a small subsample to determine the appropriateness of our research design. And this helps us minimize any errors that we may have in the overall main study, because believe me, you do not want to go down the path of undertaking months-long or years-long research projects only to find out there were errors that you could have fixed right at the start. So we do a pre-test. And depending on what comes out of that pretest, our researchers may actually make some amendments to their research design. Depending on the scale of those amendments, the researchers might go back and test again, or else they're ready to proceed into the main study and actually now start collecting that data. But just because we've got the data doesn't mean our work is over. We need to process and analyze the data. So the data needs to be converted through editing and coding into a format that will answer the marketing manager's questions. Because think about it, you've just gone out and collected all this data. You're not about to turn around and show up to the marketing manager or to the general manager and go, here you go, here's the results of 1,000 surveys. It's your job as a market researcher to analyze that data. So the first step that we do there is we edit and code. And so that means we check the data for forms of omissions, legibility. So do we understand it? Is it consistent in its classification? So is it really clear that we've got the answers, that the answers are all correct? And then we place that data into meaningful categories or groups of responses. And this is then called coding. And we can either achieve that by hand or we use computer tabulation to help us do it. Much easier. And then we do the analysis. And the analysis is the application of logic to understand the data gathered. And it varies from simple determination of patterns to really complex statistical analysis. And then finally, once we've looked at that data, analyzed that data and seen the story that data has for us and what it's showing us, we then put that information together and prepare a report and make conclusions and possibly recommendations that will be helpful for the decision-making process. So the research report should effectively communicate the research findings. So if the research report is too long or too complex for managers to use, then it's useless. So we need to be succinct and to the point when we're writing our research report. So researchers should look at the analysis of the information collected and ask, what does this mean to management? Why is it important? Why would somebody want to know this? And the big one, what's the key takeaway? What's the aha that we're seeing here with this data? Now, market research is not a one-shot project. It's actually an ongoing process. For example, an exploratory research study may be followed up by a survey. Researchers may design specific research projects for each aspect of the marketing mix. So it's ongoing and dynamic. Different types of research may actually even be going on at the same time. The program strategy refers to an organization's overall plan to utilize market research. So, well, guys, we've come to the end of our first lecture. So some of the key takeaways that you should have had by watching this lecture and referring back to the textbook as well is that marketing research is the systematic and objective process of gathering information to aid marketing decisions. The research skills applicable are across different contexts and different industries. So what you learn here in this class, you'll be able to take out and use at any type of organization. Market research helps shift risky intuitive decisions to systematic objective-based decisions, which is so important. By having our research there means that we are more likely to have a positive result. And you should also understand now the 6 steps we use when we're undertaking our marketing research. So everybody, thank you so much. And I look forward to connecting with you in next week's lecture. At some stage, whenever I can find the off button.